Good evening, everybody. And welcome to the regular meeting of Fernie City Council held on January 13th, 2026, Kisuk-Yukit. We acknowledge the city of Fernie is located within Kukinamakis, the unceded territory of Yakutat Nucleat First Nation. We recognize that we live and work within their vast lands. Kanahunik are from Yakutat Nucleat and are members of the Ktunaxa-speaking peoples of British Columbia, Idaho, and Montana. A happy new year to everyone, and I'll call the meeting to order at 6:31 p.m. And I'm going to ask to add a late item to the agenda, which is the Elk Valley Fieldhouse and Outdoor Rink Society sublease agreement. So I'll ask for a mover and a seconder for the following resolution: that the agenda of the January 13th, 2026 regular meeting be amended to include the Elk Valley Fieldhouse Society and the Fernie Outdoor Rink Society sublease agreement, and that this be brought forward to the front of the agenda before item 10 bylaws, and that the agenda of the January 13th, 2026 regular meeting be adopted as amended. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Audia Kelly. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. Bear with me. We've got a few minutes to get through here. So I'll ask for a mover and a seconder for the following recommendation: the minutes of the January 24th, 2025 special meeting be adopted. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Nixon. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. That's unanimous. And a mover and a seconder for the following recommendation: that the minutes of the December 9th, 2025 special meeting be adopted. Moved by Councillor Audia Kelly, seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. That the minutes of the December 15th, 2025 special meeting be adopted. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Audia Kelly. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. That the minutes of the December 16th, 2025 special meeting be adopted. Moved by Councillor Nixon, seconded by Councillor Audia Kelly. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. That the minutes of the September 10th, 2025 OCP Task Force meeting be adopted. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Shoesmith. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you.
I did have a question, if I might.
About those minutes?
Yeah.
Okay.
And primarily, just what is the procedural mechanism that we are adopting these minutes?
I'll turn to our corporate officer, but I believe this is a committee of council,
Right.
therefore we have to adopt them. Not at all. Sorry. A mover and a seconder for the following recommendation: the minutes of the October 7th, 2025 OCP Task Force meeting be adopted. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Nixon. Any discussion? All those in favor? You're jumping the gun on that one? Okay. A mover and a seconder, the minutes of the November 4th, 2025 OCP Task Force meeting be adopted. Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Shoesmith. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. I'll now open the floor to public participation and invite the public in attendance or participating electronically who wish to comment on items listed on the meeting agenda in accordance with section 3.7.3 of the procedure bylaw to address council, except speakers must not address council regarding a matter for which a public hearing must be held or has been held pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of the matter or adoption of the bylaw. Speakers must not address council regarding a permit for which public notice must be given or has been given pursuant to the Local Government Act prior to council's consideration of issuance of the permit. A speaker may only address council for a maximum of 3 minutes, and speakers are asked to state their full name and community of residence.
Our first speaker, Your Worship, is Geordie Goethals.
Welcome. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Geordie Goethals, Coal Creek Road, Fernie. Coming here today representing the Fernie Outdoor Rink Society as a board member and treasurer. We wanted to provide a brief update given the adjusted agenda item to be discussed regarding the sublease with the Elk Valley Fieldhouse Society, as we haven't spoken with all members of council. And provide also a brief update on our ongoing efforts to revive the rink this winter. Firstly, we'd like to thank Mayor Milligan for resetting the conversation. That was badly needed. We would also like to thank the Elk Valley Fieldhouse Society for their support. They have never wavered from their original position that they would let us use the ice if they were not breaking ground this winter. Lastly, we would also like to thank the city staff in supporting our efforts. It should be noted, even if the sublease is approved, there's still a lot of work to do in a very short time frame, given we're in mid-January, and expectations should reflect such. We have to work on insurance, volunteer training, operating details, water, lights, etc. We do believe we can get there, but it is a lot to ask. With that said, we remain hopeful and committed to best efforts to have ice this winter for at least a few weeks if possible. We also still require support from the city, and particularly regarding water access. We are awaiting word regarding that. We should also note, or would also like to note, an initial proposal has been provided to the city staff for a new location to test for showstoppers before we come to council. We are awaiting feedback on that as well. In conclusion, we appreciate all efforts to support us and hope that council will support the proposed sublease. We need that as a starting point to get ice this winter. We have a lot to do and beyond this, and request expediency in resolving the water access. Another cold weather window is approaching, and we remain optimistic and hopeful we can take advantage and bring the kids of Fernie and adults as well some outdoor ice this winter, as well as for winters beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goethals.
Next is Aisha Haynes.
Welcome.
My name is Aisha Haynes, and I am a resident of Fernie. I'm here this evening speaking on behalf of the Elk Valley Fieldhouse Society in support of our sublease agreement with the Fernie Outdoor Rink Society. As Jordy mentioned, we remain fully in support of their activities and hope to be neighbors with them for a really long time once both of our facilities are going. So we thank you for your consideration in allowing us to amend our agreement to sublease to them. Over the holiday period, we did have an unavoidable 3 to 4 week delay in facility selection. So we became aware at the end of the year that we would not be able to break ground until end of March or beginning of April. We immediately did want to pivot into working with the Outdoor Rink Society to try and give them access to that space. So thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Haynes.
And I apologize in advance for leaving because I'm supervising the concession tonight and they're a bit of a mess.
Not at all. Thank you for that. Is there anyone else or online who's indicated? No? Thank you. With that, we'll move into that item, 11.2, Elk Valley Fieldhouse Society and the Fernie Outdoor Rink Society sublease agreement. And just for context, we have been working very closely with the Outdoor Rink Society and the Fieldhouse to make this happen and give them the opportunity for proof of concept that they can make this work. And so the original lease with the Fieldhouse did not permit a sublease. The Fieldhouse Society has provided a draft sublease, and they received feedback from Fernie's general counsel and accepted all the changes required. And so we'd like to approve this sublease this evening so that we can sort out the other details like water and lights, etc. So that's the context from my perspective. Any questions, or Councillor Artie Kelly?
Just in regards to water and lights, Your Worship, there was a water source and there were lights. Were they disconnected?
Yeah, they had to be removed with the non-compliant buildings that were there at the time. So we are working on an alternative on both those fronts. So we'll work very hard to get those sorted out in short order. Any other questions? With that, I will turn to our corporate officer. If you could read the proposed resolution.
So the optional resolution for council consideration is that council approve a sublease agreement between the Elk Valley Fieldhouse Society, Fernie Outdoor Rink Society, and the City of Fernie as leaseor, subject to the following conditions. One, proof of general liability insurance coverage, naming the City of Fernie as additional insured, completion of a project safety operating plan, and 3, a mutually agreeable sublease agreement setting out the terms and conditions to the satisfaction of all parties. And that council authorise the mayor to execute the sublease agreement upon satisfaction of the above conditions.
Can I have a mover? Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Audia Kelly. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Council, and thank you, Mr. Goosals, for your presentation this evening. And that clears another hurdle for us. So thanks very much. That moves us right along to item 10, bylaws. And the first presentation, 10.1, 2026 Water and Wastewater Bylaws Amendment report from our Director of Finance, Mr. Burdett.
Thank you, Mayor Milligan. Hello, Council, members of the public. This presentation is to remind for Council and community the key changes and information driving the 2026 to 2030 water and wastewater budget and the related bylaws before Council tonight for initial readings. This presentation is almost identical to the last two on this topic. So I will just stop me if I'm going too fast or if you have any questions, please. Three main issues for this budget. One is operating expenses. Two is the capital plan for 2026 and the work we've done in our long-term capital planning and reserve projections. Three is a few slides on the potential wastewater treatment facility in 2028-29. Just to recap what we've done so far and how we arrived at this report tonight. We did an initial public survey in October, November on the budget. Of those respondents, many people signaled that we should be investing in our infrastructure. December 9th, Council received a similar presentation to tonight for information only. December 16th was an additional presentation to Council, at which point Council directed staff to bring back tonight's bylaw for initial readings. And so starting with operating expenses, there are some small increases to external contracts and building maintenance line items to account for increasing system maintenance needs. The rest of the operational expenses are expected to increase on an inflationary basis. The total operating expense increase for both water and wastewater inflationary purposes is 3%. There is one major operating cost ask for Council to consider. The water utility specifically is understaffed with its team of 3. Urgent issues due to external factors like regulatory requirements or turbid events are happening more frequently, which reduces time to spend on preventative maintenance. One additional operator plus benefits would be an approximate 7.5% water rate increase or an additional $115,000. This is about just under $27 for the average single family home. And just for clarity, this rate increase is not property tax. This is just our quarterly utility rate bills. There was the issue of the early payment discount for Council's consideration. We offer a 5% discount if the full year's utilities are paid by the end of February. Other municipalities, some of them do the same, not all of them, and they offer between 3 and 10% discount. This discount dates back to when interest rates were double digits, and it made sense to offer this from the city's perspective because we could then invest that money early and have it grow. Now, with lower interest rates, that program loses money overall. The early payment discounts cost roughly $55,000, and by my estimate, we earn only around $35,000 in interest on that money that comes in early. So it's an overall loss of about $20,000. Which equates to roughly a 0.5% rate difference. So instead of a percentage of ratepayers who are able and willing to pay early and save 5%, everybody could save 0.5% by getting rid of this. This slide shows the proposed water capital projects for 2026. The big one there is Fairy Creek UV installation. And again, over half of that is being funded by DCCs. Also on the topic of capital and reserves, staff spent a lot of time On illustrating for council our funding gap, particularly with our linear assets. So for water, we started by looking at our current linear assets, which is pipes in the ground, and assessing their value. Total value of replacing all assets today is 149.3 million, but only 12.7 of that needs replacing now, and 24.8 million will come up for replacement in the next 15 years. And our 2025 ending balance in the water reserve is only $1.3 million. This funding gap has been building up over many, many years.
Sorry, Mr. Burdett. On your previous slide, you mentioned the water development cost charges, the DCCs, paying for just over half of the UV installation. Is that correct? That was 800,000, as I recall from the report.
That's right, 800,000.
Does that exhaust that account?
No, it doesn't. I think I can check.
I was just curious because it didn't suggest there was a balance or not.
I think I can check without messing up my slideshow here.
Sorry,
That's okay. Oh boy. Just another 15 seconds, sorry.
I apologize. I was just curious. It was a curiosity more than anything.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing for a second. The total DCC reserve balance is 2.2 at the end of 2025, but that's split up between roads and water and
Various
sewer.
components.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there will be a little bit of remaining balance in the
water
specific-
DCCs.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, apologies. Okay, as I was saying, ending balance in this reserve is just $1.3 million. This is for water. This graph, there's two lines on this one. The orange line is what ending reserve balances would be if we had a sustainable level of funding to our water reserve, which would be just over $2 million annually. It's worth defining sustainable funding as funding that is spread across the life of an asset. In other words, users pay as their assets are consumed, which helps to encourage equity between generations. The blue line is what will happen at our current level of reserve contributions of $638,000. We will be short $138 million at the end of 100 years, or $1.38 million a year. This slide shows proposed wastewater capital projects for 2026. Biggest one here is there's the exposed wastewater line under Coal Creek that has become exposed as the creek has kind of rerouted itself. So we need to move that line. For wastewater, total value of all linear assets is 203.9 million, 7.1 need replacing now. 48 million will come for replacement in the next 15 years. There's also an additional approximate $40 million needed for a wastewater treatment plant in 2028-29. Which is our current Class D estimate, which is plus or minus 25%. Council received a detailed presentation on this at last meeting in December. And the ending balance in the wastewater reserve in 2025 is $800,000. This slide is the same graph for our wastewater reserve fund. The blue line, which is our current reserve contribution of just over 700,000, shows we'll be $230 million short in 100 years. The annual sustainable level of reserve funding for wastewater is currently 3 million, and our actual contributions is 700,000. And why does sustainable funding matter? This table is trying to illustrate with very simplified math what the annual cost to replacing infrastructure would be with 3 different approaches. If you had an asset worth $100,000 and it needed to be replaced every 80 years and you saved money in an interest-free savings account, it would cost you $1,250 every year to save for that asset. If you instead placed that money in an interest-bearing account earning just 2% per year, you would need to save only $506 every year to replace that $80,000 asset. Sorry, $100,000 asset. If you saved nothing and borrowed the money every time you needed to replace an asset, the annual debt payment, which would be $4,700 for 30 years, which if I try and spread that over that same 80-year period, it's the highest of the 3, coming in at $1,433 per year. These numbers, again, are simplified, but just trying to illustrate how compound interest works and what we're trying to do by earning interest instead of paying it. Councillor Ramadas had asked this on December 9th. He wanted to see a layout of what it would cost to fund water, sewer, and fire hall with debt and non-debt. And as you can see, it's definitely more expensive to fund everything with debt. This is, again, obviously because you are paying interest versus earning it. These numbers are the average annual increase. So the numbers on the left are the effects of an annual 4.4% increase to fund reserves every year for the next 10 years. The numbers on the right are the average asset replacement value every year for the next 10 years. So that's new debt that would need to be taken out every single year to replace those assets. Fire hall, I left savings blank as we're not currently in a position to pay for all of that with savings. But the idea here with these water and sewer rate increases is, again, to try to be in a better position to be able to fund more things with our reserves. And again, this is kind of intentionally simple math on this slide, but there's lots of variables here that are hard to measure, such as interest rates, cost, timing of infrastructure replacement, and whatnot. So what can council do about these gaps as was illustrated by the blue lines on those previous 2 graphs? One option, which was recommended on December 16th, is a 4% increase to both water and wastewater rates over the next 10 years, purely to increase contributions to reserves. This would be an additional $14.51 annually for water and $19.55 annually for wastewater for the average single-family home. We'll revisit this sustainability plan every year going forward, but the projection that I'm about to show looks at 4% for the next 10 years and then a reduction of the increase down to 1% per year after that. The second thing council can do is to replace infrastructure that's overdue for replacement over the next 15 years. This will take the high-risk assets that was presented to council in December during the IICP update, in October, not December, and work on those assets over the next 5 years. And then years 6 through 15 will be aimed at assets that are beyond their useful life. This graph shows what would happen to ending reserve balances in 100 years with those recommendations on the previous slide. You can see the blue line here for water goes above the sustainable line with those increases. This one would be the wastewater line after those changes. And while it's still negative, it does bridge the gap by $180 million, which is not insignificant. Some questions from December. Again, Councillor Shoesmith asked what it would look like to bridge this gap in 20 years instead of 100. And you can see the percentage increases there. We would need water 654% increase, sewer 728% increase. And that, again, that's simplified math, which is just our annual funding amount over 100 years multiplied by 5 to make it over 20 years. And it would take very large percentages to bridge that gap over those 20 years. Councillor McIsaac had asked a question about scaling utilities fees versus just simply adding with every new development. In December, I said it would depend on a few things such as density and this type of math, is going to form part of our annual review going forward. If development trends towards more higher density, then we'd have fewer assets per capita to maintain and replace, which would mean more total units paying fees to maintain fewer assets, which would in theory mean a general scaling down, but but that would need to be done in an annual review. We don't have the data to do that in a real-time fashion. So, yes, sir.
And are you anticipating that will be done as part of the annual review in terms of non-market change, the nature of those units and looking at how our assets will then be paid for?
Yes, I am anticipating that. We look at
Okay.
all of our fees every year and all of our units
Yep.
and that forms how much revenue we bring in and that helps us balance our budget. So, I mean, that's part of the math that I do and I can present those numbers to council going forward. But
Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
would be useful actually, that at the point of annual review, that if you could share those with council and so that the council could understand the nature of the change and consequently the nature of the utility fee adjustments.
Mhm.
Thank you.
And on that point too, Councillor Hamilton had asked a question about the end cost per user, and it will take a bit of external help to get that number. For example, like we don't know how many users the campground uses for their fees or, so we have some data for some of our utility rates, but not complete data for all of them. But those rates do form part of the bylaw and are there for council's review. And then again, another thing to consider is likely having to construct a $40 million wastewater treatment plant in 2028-29. Significant funding source for this will likely have to be borrowing. And an option presented to council in December is to consider saving a small amount for this eventual expenditure now to reduce the future borrowing impact a little. So an additional 5% sewage rate increase would be $23.50 per house and would raise an additional roughly $100,000. 10% increase obviously doubles those numbers. And on December 16th, council directed staff to prepare this bylaw with that 10% additional increase. So to summarize these findings for council, the bylaws before you tonight include a 14.5% increase for water, which includes a 7.5% one-time increase for a new operator, and then 4% increase to go to reserves and 3% for inflationary operating expenses. And then the wastewater bylaw is prepared with a 17% increase, 14% for reserves. 10 of that 14 will be purely for a new future wastewater treatment plant, and then 3% for inflationary. And then again, as the report noted, this long-term financial analysis and the IICP update only include the water and wastewater linear assets, not the facilities that are also required to support the delivery of these services. That information will be compiled through an upcoming project titled Facilities Asset Capital Plan, and these projections will be revised upon that completion. And then just to close, these are staff's recommendations. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burdett. Questions, comments from council? Seeing none, I'll turn to our corporate officer and ask her to read the recommendations.
Your Worship and Council, the staff recommendation is that the water connection and user charger bylaw number 1594, amendment bylaw number 2542/2025 be given first, second and third readings.
Mover, Councillor Nixon, seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you.
Second recommendation is that the sewer connection and user charge bylaw number 1593, amendment bylaw number 2543/2025 be given first, second and third readings.
Moved by Councillor Adia Kelly, seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous as well. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Burdett. And I can't help but comment, like recent headlines, particularly in Calgary, to what could be characterized as black swan events. But if you sort of step back and take a macro view, there are assets that should have been maintained and potentially replaced using prudent financial management such as this. So thank you for bringing this forward. With that, we will stay with our Director of Finance, item 10.2, 2025 to 2029 5-year financial plan bylaw number 2527 amendment. Mr. Burdett.
Thanks, Mayor Milligan. No slideshow for this one. This is just the bylaw for adoption, which is helping us remind council of some larger purchases we had planned for 2026, so we can get started with the purchasing process early.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, I'll ask our corporate officer to read the recommendation.
Yes, Your Worship. The staff recommendation is that 2025 to 2029 5-year financial plan bylaw number 2527, amendment bylaw number 2541, 2025 be adopted.
Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Nixon. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. Item 11.1, discretionary grants, a report from our Deputy Director of Finance, Ms. Mullen. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, I have just a few slides on the 2026 discretionary grants. First, I will speak on the 2026 discretionary grants recommendations from the Discretionary Grants Committee. And secondly, I will touch on the amended policy. So the Discretionary Grants Committee met to discuss the applications received for the fall 2026 intake on December 3rd. A total of 8 applications were received for a total amount requested of $16,500. We had extended the deadline for this intake to November 30th, and it was advertised across all communication channels. At the meeting, the Discretionary Grants Committee discussed all the applications, and tonight they were recommending 5 organizations for award. Cycling Without Age for $2,000, Elk River Watershed Alliance for $2,000, Elk Valley Rugby Football Club for $1,500, Fernie Elks Lodge number 81 for $1,000, and Ghost Rider Adventure Camp Foundation for $1,500. The details of what the funds are going to be utilized for were all included in the report, so I won't go into detail on all of them, but happy to answer any questions if there are any. In addition, tonight, staff is seeking approval on the amended discretionary grants policy. A little background, at the 2025 Discretionary Grants Committee meeting, the committee expressed interest in revisiting and amending the policy for the 2026 intake to better fit the needs of the community and the community groups that are applying. After a lot of thoughtful discussion, council directed staff to amend the policy to remove the requirement that stipulates that the City of Fernie grant should not be considered as the primary source of funding for the organization. They also had recommended removing the former eligibility criteria that does not allow an organization to receive funding in more than 2 of the 5 years. And then finally, it was recommended that the policy include a second intake period. This was added to ensure all user groups have access to the funding through a fall and spring intake period. The additional intake period will have a deadline of March 31st. The amended policy has been attached to the report, and I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have about the amended policy.
Thank you. Questions, comments from council? Councillor Hamilton?
Yes, I will, as the only member of the committee who's here tonight, add the additional color that the decision to only grant half of the available funds was specific to ensure that we did have some funding left over for doing a spring intake. So,
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll ask our corporate officer to read the first recommendation.
The first recommendation is that council approve the discretionary grant allocations proposed by the Discretionary Grants Committee on December 3, 2025, totaling $8,000 as included in this report dated January 13, 2026.
Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Shoesmith. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you.
Second staff recommendation is that council approve the amendment to the discretionary grant policy CP 201904 as attached to this report.
Moved by Councillor Audie Kelly, seconded by Councillor Hamilton. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Mullen.
Thank you.
And as always, it's wise to flatter council when you said thoughtful discussion. It was well done. Always works in your favor. With that, we'll move on to reports from council members. Oh, I almost skipped over that. I know that was quick. And I'll start with Councillor Shoesmith if he's okay with that.
Thank you, Mayor Milligan. Gosh, I spent like half the day preparing for this and I kind of skipped that. So I don't actually have a ton to report other than Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody. And oh gosh, ski joring's coming up. I'm not sure how they are on their volunteer situation, but definitely if you're interested, that's a great group of people and a good bunch of stuff happening. And it's for charity.
And I'm sorry, Councillor, do you have the date off the tip of your head?
February, I want to say it's Valentine's Day, actually.
Okay,
It's in there somewheres. Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, I got a little bit of stuff to do with them, but they're pretty good. Yeah, I don't think we've had a meeting since, but I was able to go down to the bargain shop and help them out with the Phyllis Sleigh Day there. And they raised some money for the Salvation Army. And that was really fun. That's all I have to report.
Thank you. Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Worship. Can I say it's a wonderful holiday season. I didn't really spend a lot of time thinking about things that were going to happen right away, but you know, I find that this whole holiday season is just it's a time of reflection. So just bear with me for a second here. I want to give some kudos to our staff. And you know, when I wake up in the morning, I turn on the tap and I get water. So thank you. And when I flush the toilet, it's gone. Thank you. When I drive down the street and it's plowed, thank you. When I go to any of our amazing recreational facilities, such as ice rink or the curling or our pool, it's there and it's all working. And so I say thank you again. And when I put on my compost or waste or recycling, it's gonzos. That's it, taken away at the curb. So thank you for that. I open up my email and see the awesome newsletter. Thank you. When I hear sirens, know that we are protected in our community. Thank you. When I get my agenda package and see all the hard work from our finance team, our corporate administration, our CAO, our CFO, all of you guys, all the team, thank you. And lastly, I want to say thanks to everyone who sits at this table for their dedication to our community. Sometimes these seats are very hard to sit in, and thank you for showing up and reading huge agenda packages and advocating for our community. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Audie Kelly.
Thanks, Your Worship. Well, that was a hard act to follow. Thank you, Councillor Nixon, for pointing out to us that we have a lot to be grateful for. We certainly have our challenges, as you also alluded to, but we do have a lot to be grateful for. And I would just like to also add to all the wonderful volunteer and community partners in our community that make life in our town more vibrant than it would be without them. Thank you to them too. I really enjoyed our staff Christmas party. Thank you to everyone that did all the hard work for that. It was very enjoyable. And the fine folks at the golf course for looking after us there. Enjoyed the BB&B before Christmas that the chamber put on, and the ugly sweater contest was fun. So thank you to them as well. And yeah, as we're heading into the last months of this term, we do have so much. We live in a beautiful place, and sometimes I think we get wrapped up in everything that's wrong, and maybe we should not lose sight of that, because we need to work on those problems, of course, but we also should think about all the things that are right. So Happy New Year to everyone, and may you have peace and prosperity in your lives. And thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor. Use Councillor Palmer.
I just wanted to say that I was really grateful for some snow over the holidays. And I got to go to the Fernie on Fire event, which was really lovely. Got to talk to a bunch of people. And I just wanted to mention that Fernie Food Security Society and FSS kind of partnered up to do an angel tree over the holidays. And shout out to Miss Webbs for organizing that, and Jen Riddell. They did an amazing job, and we were able to supply presents to 110 kids over the holidays, which I think was a success.
That's an excellent success. Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing that, and congratulations to you for getting your driver's license today. Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. As Councillor Nixon and Councillor Adia Kelly said, I spent the holidays kind of reflecting and being grateful for the community that we live in. I won't wax as philosophically as Councillor Nixon and Councillor Adia Kelly did, but yeah, I too attended the Fernie on Fire. The staff Christmas party was fantastic. Remind the community that we are still doing council cafes the first and third Monday of the month here in the senior center. And I'm just really hoping that we get a turn in the weather, not just selfishly to get better skiing, but also for the Outdoor Rink Society now, to be able to get some outdoor ice going in this community. So yeah, thank you, and Happy New Year to everybody.
Yeah, well, thank you. I just reflecting on those comments, and I agree, you've captured it beautifully. I did want to say, I pass on an enormous thanks to those staff who responded and protected our wastewater infrastructure during those 2 atmospheric river events. I don't think people fully appreciate what the outcome could have been. It literally could have been catastrophic. I know the decision to put effluent into the river is a very difficult decision, a decision nobody wants to make, but it saved much of that effluent from either backing up into people's homes or to actually causing a catastrophic failure of our lagoons, at which point we wouldn't have been able to provide wastewater treatment and likely would have had to evacuate this community just before Christmas. So I cannot overstate how impressed I was. People approached me and said, "Oh, that must have been very nerve-wracking," and quite frankly, I knew we were in good hands. So it wasn't that nerve-wracking, quite frankly. They did a fantastic job, and I think it was a very difficult decision to make, but it was the right decision, and it saved this community. So thank you to all of the team that participated in that, from our emergency response folks all the way down to our wastewater folks. Yeah, exemplary work. So thank you. Yeah, I don't have much more to add except to say that I had the great pleasure of spending the afternoon with 2 grade 2 classes at Fernie City Hall. And I'll tell you, when Councillor Nixon says sometimes these seats aren't easy to sit in, sometimes talking to those kids is not easy, because they ask really hard, unfiltered questions. But it's a great exercise. So I want to thank the teachers and the students for joining me today at City Hall. And with that, I'll turn to, we're going to move in camera, and I'll turn to our corporate officer to read the resolution, please.
The resolution is that the meeting be closed to the public pursuant to section 91C of the Community Charter as the subject matter being considered at this time relates to labour relations or other employee relations. And section 91G as the subject matter being considered at this time relates to litigation or potential litigation affecting the municipality. And section 91K as the subject matter being considered at this time relates to negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a municipal service that are at their preliminary stages and that in the view of council could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in public.
Moved by Councillor Hamilton, seconded by Councillor Nixon. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you. We will move into close and we'll take a 5-minute recess.